Let's take politics out of this. Just talk common sense for a second. Why is it so hard for Democrats, not necessarily to agree that boys shouldn't be in girls' bathrooms or boys shouldn't be on girls' sports teams, but to not demonize those who do and say, look, maybe this is something where people have different opinions. Let's find common ground. Well,
look, my point is we need to have debates about these issues.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Why aren't Democrats willing to?
If you have that debate, let's start with the fact that, like, transgender people do exist, right? Okay. We're talking about transgender women on women's sports teams, for example. And we ought to be able to say, like, should there be restrictions? The Olympics has restrictions, right? So why is it, as you say, impossible for Democrats to even talk? Well, look, because we have become a party that focused so long on tolerance, we've become intolerant. Intolerant of views that are not in line with some sort of left-wing democratic orthodoxy of certain on litmus test issues. And so if you don't meet that litmus test, you're not even allowed to talk. And that's the problem. That's the issue. I didn't start this debate to become an expert on transgender issues. I'm not. I think there are medical professionals that should be deciding that.
But you are a father of girls, right?
I'm a father of girls, and I can speak honestly about, when they're older, right? I'm not talking about them now. They play on co-ed soccer teams, right? I played on co-ed teams when I was their age. But when they get older, and there are real issues of competitive fairness and safety, if you find yourself competing on we should have restrictions.
No, we should have the discussion. And I think you were right to point out that Democrats can't. But I've said on the program for a while, and it was Donald Trump's ad, Kamala's they, them, Donald Trump's for you.
Hugely effective.
Hugely effective. Yep. I have long argued that that ad was a proxy for so much more, right? If you're not in for Ukraine aid, you're pro-Putin. If you're not in for BLM, you're racist. On and on and on. These sort of litmus test issues.
You're right. This is the point. And if Democrats see that you don't agree, then not only are you wrong, but you're a bad person. And that just perfectly describes how most Trump voters feel about their Democratic friends, right? All the Democrats say, how can you vote for this guy? You're a terrible person for wanting to support Donald Trump, right? That's the attitude. And if that's your attitude as a political party, you're not going to win any friends. You're not going to get the trust of voters. And that's ultimately what we need if we're going to win. This is about winning elections. I believe that Democrats should win elections because I want to promote civil rights. I genuinely want to protect trans people for rights, right? I want to have reasonable restrictions. I don't want to have them banned from all sports like some Republicans want to do. If we're going to win these debates, we have to win elections. And if we're just seen as so arrogant and out of touch that we can't even accept your different opinion and have a debate about it, we're never going to win.
Jillian Michaels on Fox and Friends was talking about exactly this issue for you. Take a listen.
I cannot wrap my head around the party that the Democrats have become. And the more that you try to point out these issues, the more they're doubling down.
Right.
And this is where it's almost radicalizing me to a place of coming at them just as hard. And to this Congressman, Mr. Moulton, dig in here. Don't back down. Keep doing what you're doing for the sake of your family and your party.
Have you seen any willingness, since you've talked about this a week or so ago, for Democrats to have this conversation?
Absolutely. A lot of it, all behind the scenes. So I've had a lot of colleagues come up to me and say, this is the discussion we need to have. We need to have this conversation. And by the way, Hakeem Jeffries very much wants to have this conversation. He's assured me 3 times that we need to have this conversation, that the backlash to my comments just proves my point.
Right.
We're having trouble having it.
To be fair, he said that in private. But you had protests at your office, which I think is quite interesting over this, because there's a big part of Democrats, sort of the most activist wing, that is like this. And we can argue, I think you and I agree when you said it's a proxy for so many other things. Nancy Mace has made an awful lot of hay over whether or not a trans member of Congress can use the women's bathroom. We had her on the program last night. I thought she really made news when she said that the legislation isn't going to just stop at the Capitol. It's going to extend. Take a listen.
I also want to extend it to any educational institution or school or place of higher learning that gets any federal funding. I mean, this is only the start, and I'm not going to stop. They are threatening to kill me over this. Men that want to use women's restrooms are threatening to kill me over this issue.
Again, do Democrats have to figure out how to deal with this issue in a way not that's left-right, but is common sense?
First of all, this is very different than the competitive sports issues we're talking about. Because we're not talking about men using women's restrooms. We're talking about transgender women using women's restrooms. That's an important distinction. And it is true that trans people exist.
But do Democrats though not have to acknowledge that there is a lot of women, and frankly men too, but there's a lot of women who see a trans woman who still has the biological parts of being a man, and they see a man and they don't want that man in their restroom?
Leland, I am not a bathroom expert. Like, I think the reality is that we need to be able to have a discussion about this. But when the Republicans come in and just try to attack the first transgender woman in Congress by apparently putting guards around bathrooms or whatever, this is really going too far. And it's trying to deny that she exists. Now, listen, look at Nancy Mace, for example. She's the first woman to graduate from the Citadel. There were a lot of men at the Citadel who said she didn't belong there. There's no room for women in the military. I'm sure she had trouble just figuring out what bathroom she was going to be allowed to use, coming as the first woman at an all-male institution. So Nancy Mace should know a little bit about what it means to break barriers, to be the first transgender woman in Congress, and yet she's just twisting this piece of, she's taking this opportunity to just attack someone. I think we need to think back to where we were with gay rights like 30, 40 years ago, right? There are a lot of people who said gays don't exist. They're deviants, they just need to be re-educated. And we've come around to say, no, they do exist. You should be able to marry whom you love. We got some work to do here, but this is an important debate to have.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.